I mow your lawn, repair your roof, or teach your kid economics, and in turn you give me dollars. We can think of these dollars as certificates of performance. With these certificates of performance that I have in hand, I go to my grocer and I ask him to give me a pound of steak and a six-pack of beer that my fellow man produced. In effect, the grocer says to me, Williams, you're making a claim on what your fellow man produced. You're asking him to serve you. I say, yes. And then the grocer, in effect, says, did you serve him? And I say, yes, I did. And the grocer responds, prove it. Then I show him these certificates of performance that some people call dollars or pesos or marks. And those certificates of performance stand as evidence that I have served my fellow man. That's how income is generated in a free society, by serving your fellow man. Now contrast the morality of having to serve one's fellow man as a condition of being served by him with the alternative. Government can say to me, Williams, it's too hot. You don't have to mow your fellow man's lawn. Just sit on your butt and watch Oprah. As long as you're loyal to me, I will take what your fellow man produces and give it to you. I would say that that is a vision that's immoral. Now, obviously, some people are more effective at serving and pleasing their fellow man than others. And as a result, they earn a greater number of certificates of performance and hence have higher claims on what their fellow man produces. Take Luciano Pavarotti. Why is his income higher than mine? Well, it's because of people like you. That is, you will plunk down $75 to hear Pavarotti sing an aria from La Boheme, but how much would you be willing to plunk down for me to sing the same aria? Now those who would call Pavarotti's income unfair and would have government take some of it to give to others are essentially saying, we disagree with the decision of millions and millions of people acting voluntarily that resulted in Pavarotti's higher income. We're going to use the coercive powers of government to cancel out the full effect of some of those decisions through income redistribution. Now, I might add, income redistribution is a term that's widely used. I might add that income redistribution is simply a legal form of what a thief does. That is, when a thief robs you, he redistributes income from you to him. Now, the primary distinction between his behavior and that of Congress is simply a matter of legality. In a free society, people who are wealthy have become so through effectively serving their fellow man. Cyrus McCormick's reaping machine, Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, Lloyd Converk, the employer of Pfizer company who created the antibiotic tetracycline, a life-saving antibiotic, are just a few of the exceptional contributors. While these people and their companies became extremely wealthy as a result of these inventions, society benefited far more from their contribution than they did in terms of the value of healthier lives, not to mention the millions and possibly billions of lives saved. Propaganda and stubborn ignorance has it that the advance of capitalism benefits only the rich, but the evidence refutes it. Rich people have always been able to afford entertainment. But it was the development and marketing of radio and television that made that entertainment accessible to the common man. The rich have never had the drudgery of washing and ironing clothing, beating out rugs, or waxing floors. It was the development and mass production of washing machines, wash and wear clothing, vacuum cleaners, and no-wax floors that spared the common man of this drudgery. At one time, only the rich could afford automobiles, telephones, and computers. Now all but a tiny percentage of Americans enjoy these goods. Today, as it has always been, the direct impetus for technological innovation and progress has been the entrepreneurial search for profits and a competitive economy. At the beginning of the 20th century, life expectancy was 47 years in the United States. At the end, it was 77 years. Deaths from infectious disease fell from 700 per 100,000 of the population to 50. Agricultural workers during that interval, during that century, fell from 35% of the workforce to 2.5%. Automobile ownership rose from 1% of the population to 91% of the population. For most of mankind's existence, he has had to spend most of his time simply eking out a living. In pre-industrial society, and in many places today, the most optimistic scenario for the ordinary citizen was to be able to eke out enough to meet his physical needs for another day. With the rise of capitalism and the rise in human productivity that yielded seemingly ceaseless economic progress, it is no longer necessary for mankind to spend his entire day providing for minimum physical needs. People are able to satisfy their physical needs with less and less time. Now, this made it possible for people to have time and resources to develop spiritually and culturally. More of them have time available to read and become educated in the liberal arts and gain more knowledge about the world around them. Greater wealth permits them to attend the arts. It permits them to afford recreation and contemplate a more fulfilling and interesting life. Now, normal profit is the opportunity cost of using entrepreneurial abilities in the production of a good. In other words, opportunity cost is what the entrepreneur could have earned in his next best alternative activity, say another business venture. Now, just as wages, rent, and interest must be paid in order to employ the services of labor, land, and capital, normal profits must be paid in order to employ entrepreneurial services. That is, the entrepreneurial services is the resource that makes decisions, innovates, and takes risk. This person, this resource must be paid in order to get it to produce goods. Now, whether an entrepreneur makes profit depends essentially on two things. The first is whether he's producing a good that consumers value and are willing to pay for. The second is whether he's using the scarce resources of society in the most efficient manner in order to produce the good. Let's look at just one tiny example of the role that profits play in providing the incentives to produce what the consumer wants. Remember 1985, when Coca-Cola introduced the new Coke. Pepsi-Cola president Roger Enrico called it the Edsel of the 80s. Now, who made him bring back the old Coke? Was it Congress? The courts? or the president or some government officials that were acting in the interests of soda-drinking Americans? No way. It was the specter of negative profits, namely losses, that convinced Coca-Cola to bring back the old Coke. Thus, one role of profits is to discover what consumers want. And the other role of profits is that if producers make mistakes, give them incentives to correct them. Profits also force producers to employ resources wisely. If producers waste inputs, their production costs will be higher. In order to cover their production costs, they must charge higher prices, higher than what consumers are willing to pay, or higher than the prices that their competitors are charging. After a while, the company will make unsustainable losses and go out of business. As a result, the company going bankrupt or out of business makes the company's resources available to someone else who will put them to wiser use.